Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we are going to be going over a very interesting pair of gauntlets, the Ogre Gauntlets, which are known as Steelrend. Now, Steelrend gauntlets don't really have a lot of effects on them, but they are definitely gauntlets that have a little bit of, I want to say like a little bit of a controversy to them, because some people would prefer them over others, and they don't have the necessary stats to be useful to everybody. And as we go over them, you'll see. So we have a defense of 273, which does vary by quite a bit, mainly because the enhanced damage, because the defense bonus is a flat rate defense bonus, and it does vary between 170 to 210 flat rate defense. Also, the defense on the Ogre Gauntlets themselves vary between 62 to 71. So we've got quite a bit of variance in the gauntlets, anywhere between, I think, as low as 273 or 233 or 232. I think 232 is more along the lines of what they are, to 281 on the top end for these gauntlets. Which 281 defense for a pair of gauntlets is actually really high. And when multiplied by things like, for instance, Holy Shield, I think you will notice that 281 defense is a lot. Let's take a look at the 273 right now. You notice I'm at 1,919, and when I put them on, I only go up to 2,192. However, when I tag on Holy Shield, which brings me up to 9,882, and I throw on these gauntlets, you'll notice that I go up from 9,882 to 11,288 defense just for tossing on these nice pair of gauntlets. Very, very nice defense. Now, granted, defense is not the best statistic in the world, but it's just a lot of defense. We also have a very nice effect of 10% crushing blow, which is static, and it will always be 10%. Now, of course, there are some crafted gauntlets that you could make, which I don't think I have a pair of crafted gauntlets on me right now, but they are the blood recipe. If you look up the blood recipe for the crafted gauntlets, you will see what I'm talking about. And the blood recipe gauntlets do also have a chance to proc or be crafted with 10%. It's 5 to 10%. So you don't always end up with 10% on those gauntlets, and they can end up relatively low. But the very good thing about the crafted gauntlets over the Steelrends is that you can end up with 20% IAS along with 10% crushing blow, which may be more of a beneficial thing for you. We also have a very nice bonus to strength here with 20 strength, which does vary between 15 to 20, so a little five variants on the strength there. Now, the strength is kind of odd because to wear these, you need 185 strength to begin with. So giving you 20 more strength is kind of just like, I mean, okay. I probably had to actually put hard points to reach the 185 in the first place. And even with equipment, you're probably still going to be relatively high on the strength. So putting these on means you're going to be even higher on the strength, since you're now going to be 20 points higher than whatever you were before you put these on. So right now, as you can see, I'm at 155 base with 195 strength from various pieces of equipment. And then when I put these on, I go to 215, which is really high. Perhaps these would be good to combine with something like a sacred armor, which is 232 strength. You know, maybe you wanted to make a really nice rune word and a sacred armor with a really high strength requirement, and maybe these were the gauntlets that would help you get to that really high strength requirement on your character. Now, the effects on these have to be talked about. The one in particular that we haven't mentioned yet is the enhanced damage. Now, unfortunately, this enhanced damage does spawn with a variable of 30 to 60%. And I feel like this is probably the most important thing on these. So it's not really a big deal about the strength. It's not really a big deal about the defense. It's not really a big deal about any of the little mechanics on these gloves, except for that enhanced damage. The 60% enhanced damage is a pretty nice little bonus to your ED, and although you see it doesn't really do much when my damage is relatively low, if I were to put on a relatively high damage weapon, like for instance a Last Wish, and that's from my Cursed Video series. If you guys haven't seen my Cursed Video, you should go watch that. I literally made this in a Berserker's Axe just simply for the lulz, and I know that it will eventually break because It does not have the repairs durability or indestructible mechanic. But just as a demonstration, let's take a look at our damage here, which is 1,099 to 3,274. And we put on the gauntlets, our damage goes up from 1,099 to 1,234 and goes from 3,274 to 3,671. Now, unfortunately, because of that really large variance between the 30 to 60% ED, I feel like these gauntlets can be garbage, basically. They're not really of the best quality. If you find ones that are 60% ED, I feel like you've got something that's actually worth using. Whereas if you got one that's only 30%, it might not be so great. The lack of 20% increased attack speed on these is a detriment, and it means that you're probably going to be using these on a character that is either already reaching the maximum speed of his weapon, or that does not need off IAS sources. Like, for instance, I could definitely see these being a very solid choice for a shapeshifter druid. It could also be a very solid choice for a whirlwind barbarian, because neither whirlwind barbarians nor shapeshifter druids get effects from off-weapon IAS, really. And the crushing blow combined with the enhanced damage and the plus to strength could certainly be very, very nice for them. Now, granted, a lot of people tend to choose the Dracul's Grasp before the life tap, but if you were using something like perhaps Exile, or if you were using a a Last Wish, which also has life tap, perhaps these would be another option for you. That's one of the interesting things about Last Wish, is that it is a weapon that allows you to free up other pieces of equipment. Because it does have life tap on it, you wouldn't have to use Dracul's, and you could use something else like Steelrend Ogre Gauntlets. I feel like Steelrend's Ogre Gauntlets' main enemy in the world of Diablo has got to be the crafted gauntlets. The crafted gauntlets are really the big issue here, and I'd like to take you to one of my characters that has some crafted gauntlets, so that I can show you. So this is a pair of crafted gauntlets using the blood recipe. And as you can see, they spawned with 3% lifesteal, 10% crushing blow, 2 resistances, life, and some chance to cast Nova. Now, these gauntlets can potentially spawn with 20% IAS, 3% lifesteal, and 10% crushing blow. And in my opinion, I feel like on a lot of characters, the crafted gauntlets are superior to the Steelrends. The Steelrends really kind of work their way in the very specific builds that require the 10% crushing blow, along with having the nice 60% ED, and these gloves do not have 60% ED. However, if you were to compare 20% IAS versus 60% ED, you would probably come out with a little bit of a wash, depending on how far along the breakpoints you are. Now, of course, if you're hitting that last magic breakpoint, which is going to make you so much faster, 20% IAS is probably going to be far better. I've actually crafted quite a few pairs of vampire bone gloves, and I don't always come up with the correct statistics. Sometimes I come up with a 10% crushing blow, but sometimes I come up with a 20% IAS, and it ends up being 5% crushing blow with 1% lifesteal. So it may take you quite some time and quite a number of crafts to actually come across a very nice pair of vampire bone gauntlets that are capable of combating or going up against the Steelrends in quality. And the other thing that we're going to go over is where can you find Steelrend Ogre Gauntlets. Because they are relatively high-level items, they're probably not going to drop from everywhere. So let's take a quick look at the treasure class list, and we'll also look at the Q level of these items to see where Steelrends can possibly drop. So Steelrends are located in the TC 87 class category, even though they have a relatively low level Q level. The Ogre Gauntlets, which is their base, is actually a 85 class item, and it does appear in the treasure class 87 list, which means that you're probably not going to see Steelrends from pretty much any monster in the game that's not extremely high level. We're talking about the pit level 2, or sorry, the pit with elite monsters only. You're talking about Bale, Diablo, Ancient Tunnels, Elite elite monsters only, so forth and so on. It's probably not going to be an item that you're going to see very often. Probably in rareness, it's going to be up there with things like Tyrael's Might, Templar's Might, Ghost Flame, Shadow Dancers, Wind Force, etc. It may be a little bit easier to come by than those because I think gauntlets tend to drop more often than armors, but that's just speculation on my part. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and I hope that I've given you a little bit of insight on the Steelrend Ogre Gauntlets. And as always, keep watching.